See, I told you I'd be a little bit early tonight. Hey, I'm as surprised as you are. What I did was, there's usually a couple of three little things that kind of get in my way and take longer than normal for me to get these live streams up and going. I started a little bit earlier today to allow for that. Wonders never cease. There were no little issuettes for me to deal with. Now, ironically, oh, and by the way, I'm still dying. The pollen count is at its post-apocalyptic state, if the world was being taken over by killer pollen-producing things. And the relative heat and humidity, it was a little overcast today, so the heat wasn't quite as unbearable. But for Cape Cod, it's been absolutely crazy. Yesterday, it was 89 degrees with a heat index of 95. I know some of you in the south are laughing, but for us up here, that's hot. In fact, I was filming a little trailerette for tonight's broadcast tonight, and Zuberblix kicked in. I filmed in my garage, and Zuberblix kicks in and said, "Where'd you film this? Palm Beach?" Not only was I sweating profusely, but you could actually see the haze. The humidity was so crazy. It looked like I was filming in a steam room. But a bunch of people have actually already made it. Tracy Ross Myers, hey, Bubala, how you doing? She says, hey, Robert. Georgia Ayer says, hi, T-Pons. Hi to you, Georgia. You're always on my mind. Lance Chafin says, hiya, Thrash. Hey to you, Lance. So glad you could make it. One of our new friends of channel, Big Guys 45s, says, hello, I'm here, and hello to you as well. And let's see who else. We got a lot of people saying hello to each other. That's always nice. Oh, Cindy D. Hello, everyone. Hi, Thrash. Hello to you, too. Dave Claroni says, Thrash, Dave. I'm so glad it occurred to me. I was chatting with you. Have you worked out the issues you had with your phone, by the way? Well, clearly you're in the chat tonight. You would ask me when I was going live next. And when you asked me, I had no solid idea. And it occurred to me I never got back to you when I did have a solid idea. You can thank Dave Sundstrom for tonight, by the way. He's working on an epic project. So epic, he had to actually postpone it until next week. And he very graciously told me I could take over his slot. And the least I could do is sing his praises for doing so. So, all of you out there, if you have not subscribed to Dave Sundstrom's The Good Stuff, please do. He's putting out some amazing content there. The best of 50s, 60s, and 70s and 80s TV, movies, and music. Mostly TV. Ken Wilkinson in the house. Good evening, Thrash. Oh, almost Count Dracula there. Good evening to you, too. Yeah, so nice to see you, Mr. Wilkinson. And I'll stop there. Tom the Hungry Drink says hello, everyone. Hello to you, too, Tom. Always welcome as well. Let's see. Again, a lot of fellowship. That's shorthand for people saying hello to each other. Big Guys 45 says maybe we could chat about some more 80s music tonight. LOL. I don't know. Maybe something like that. You know, Big Guys, have you actually taken a look at? I have a couple of posts I'm very, very happy with. It's a series that I was doing on misheard vintage lyrics from the 80s, and I would do it in two parts, where the first one was I would give 10 questions based on epic top 40 songs from the 80s, and ask you what the missing lyric was, and you would have to guess, and then I would give the answers in the next one. I'm trying to think of one or two at random off the top of my head. Oh, a personal favorite. Why did Corey Hart wear his sunglasses at night? We'll start with that one. But yes, I'm always game to talk about music. Oh, you should also check out another series I was doing on creepy classics. That's where I take an up-tempo number that everyone kind of remembers as being this really fun, upbeat song. And when you read the lyrics, you find out that it's cringeworthy. Ew. But yes, we'll start with that. Georgia here says, I live in Arizona. I have an uncle in Scottsdale. And our normal humidity is a wimpy 2%. Like they say, it's not the heat, it's the humidity. Of course, when the heat is 120 to 130 degrees, you gotta give people kudos. So don't count yourself as a wimp. Let's see. Oh, Dave Clooney says, thank you, Dave Sundstrom. Yes, thank you for yielding your time to me. Uh, Hungry Jerk says, Norman Lear turns 100 in a few days. Holy cow. 100? Man changed the course of television. To be honest, I was kind of surprised he was still alive, but fingers crossed. We had a couple people turning 100 recently, and we lost both of them prior to that 100th birthday. But then we had Norman Lloyd, who lived to be 106. Crazy. Let's see what else we get going on here. It was like 107 here in Kansas yesterday. Well, carry on, my wayward son. I'm sorry, Cindy. I know you're a girl, but that was the first thing about Kansas I could think of. It was either that or I don't think we're in Kansas anymore, which is why it's not 107 degrees. Uh, let's. Wow, I'm actually caught up. Oh, Tom says I've got relatives in Scottsdale. Tom, I'm convinced you and I were separated at birth or something, like Mystery Men and Monsters. There's just too many little synchronicities with everyone. And Lance, yes, you are correct. Betty White was one of them. We lost her days prior to her 100th birthday. Same thing with Mr. Storch, and RIP to both of them. Oh, my flock is everywhere is here. She says hello, everyone. My flock, hello to you too. We recently met at one of Danny Staten's late night events. In fact, you guys got to check this out. You guys all know our good friend Danny Staten. He has a live show he's been doing on Saturdays called The 13th Hour. I absolutely love that name. It's part Orwellian, part World War II. It has such a nice ring to it. And the way he does it, it's actually kind of slick. He uses two phones, and it's sort of like night. You guys remember Night Flight? Remember Night Flight back in the day? He plays music. He shows videos that he finds right here on YouTube. Some excellent material by some of YouTube's best posters. I named them by name, but modesty forbids. Yes, I'm among them. And some other little surprises, not to mention fun stuff about Bigfoot and other cryptos. And it's a lot of fun. And I just met my flock is everywhere there. And she was a very good friend of Dan's. And I think you should all make her a very good friend of ours. Welcome. Superplex is in the house. Hello, T-Pawns and gang. Hello to you too, Zuper. And yes, I'm back from Palm Springs. Of course, it doesn't feel like it. Les James says, putting up the fan. Up the lion. I think he said fan. Putting up the lion. I guess a reference to Kansas. Truth Rasmani says, love night. Me too. I just it was kind of going along with MTV at the time, but showed things of a little more cultural, not just pop culture. But and I have to warn you people in advance because it already looks like I'm starting to glitch. It's so hot in my house. My computer has a weird tendency to actually crash, much like it does on some of Ian's live shows. That did it to me the other day. At if I go dead in the water, what might happen is I might actually just go to just a still shot. If we're still going live, I might press on. But if we call it early tonight, my apologies. My flock, as everyone says, much appreciation. Oh, Tom Hungry Drink says, what are the wrenches for? Those folks are mods. And for some reason, even though I only get about a dozen and a half people checking out my channel, I seem to be targeted by a lot of bots who say absolutely nasty, filthy things to me. And just generally as a rule. And I found out actually, if you let that content stand, you can actually get dinged on your channel. The wrenches are what they call mods or moderators. They're my mod squad. They go in and they go bip and rip that nasty person right out. If you'd like, I can make you a moderator as well. Heck, everyone will be a moderator on this channel. City D answers the same answer that I just gave. Superplex says you might say you go to the living dead. Shall we open up with another living dead again? That's like it's been our main topic of conversation. Um, but I'd be happy to talk about that as well. Dave Flory said bots are not cool. Actually, while we're here, new friend of channel, Big Guys 45s, want to talk about some music tonight. Any specific topics of like vintage top 40 music, 80s preferred? Although I love me some 70s and 50s and 60s as well. I like all vintage, pretty much all music from the past century is okay with me. And what do you guys think of the creepy classics? Steve from the Life Inside Ending suggested that I do We Had Joy, We Had Fun. I think that might be a little too dark, but I'm always up for suggestions. But yeah, anytime. Oh, another thing, Big Guys 45s. He actually might be joining us tonight. Another friend of channel, young man by the name of Whisper the Freak, is a rap artist and does some actually amazing hip hop music. He has a hip hop rendition of The Raven, which is astounding. And I got to tell you, he recently posted a again a hip hop rendition of Painted Black by the Stones, which I think rivals the Stones. Personally, I think my personal favorite is still that from Siobhan Magnus. Any of you who remember American Idol may remember her. Cape Cod represent. She did a rendition, which to this day is my favorite. But you should check out Whisper the Freaks version if you get a chance. Les Chafin said one-hit wonders. It's actually amazing how many one-hit wonders they were from the 80s. A lot of them are no counties because they had one small hit that nobody remembers. Like, I just thought of them and they went out of my head. Well, one of my personal favorites is the group that said, "Ain't nothing gonna break my stride." They also had another top 40 hit that I thought was even better. It was That Kid's American, which I actually referred to in one of my posts for forgotten song lyrics. I don't know if I can just remember the name of the group. I was talking with Ian about that lately. Sometimes when I'm like with you young folks, it's something that I know and you know and everybody knows we all know, and I'll just draw a blank. And it's because I'm like so intent on everything else. Like I forgot Gomer Pyle's real name today. Of course, it's Jim Neighbors. But it's like, of course I knew Gomer Pyle with Jim Neighbors. So if I forget something that's mind-numbingly obvious, bear with me. I just got a lot of stuff in the air, you might say. Got some music groups here before we get too far. Let's see. My Flags everyone says 80s are the best. They certainly are. Oh, Tom the Hungry Jerk says Dio and Black Sabbath. Love Black Sabbath. I did like me some Dio. Great stuff. Of course, don't hate me. I prefer Ozzy Osbourne when he went solo. Ooh, Zuplik says the Stylistics. Great band. They had some great hits. They did the Sideshow of Tears, didn't they? Please correct me if I'm wrong. That song used to make me cry when I was like 6 or 7. The unapologetic geek is here. You started early. Yes, in my best James Dew and I said, ooh, and just a wee bit early. Yes, I actually explained earlier in the chat there's always one or two things that kind of throw a wrench into the works when I'm going to go live. So tonight I decided rather than keep you guys in suspenders, I would actually dig in a few minutes early and allow for these little glitches. And wonders never cease. Nothing tripped me up. So I actually posted on about 12 minutes before 8. But don't worry, Tug, you haven't missed anything particularly earth-shattering, just a lot of us having fellowship and deciding what we're going to talk about tonight. Oh, and while we're on the subject, to those of you who haven't subscribed to the Unapologetic Geek, please do. Not only does he have some of the best retrospective reviews of vintage sci-fi that are available on YouTube right now, he has a new service. He calls it a very, very cute name. He calls it Public Domain Theater. Correct me if I'm in error on any of the points there. But what he does is he has watch-alongs with old public domain movies. And a lot of you may remember a couple of years ago, Dave Sundstrom wanted to do the Last Man on Earth on Halloween, and at the last minute was unable to. The Unapologetic Geek just did the Last Man on Earth, and it was so much fun. I had to leave before the end, and now I'm going to be totally tortured. But fortunately, I own the movie and I've seen it several times. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, I'm a 70s guy, pop, rock, country, R&B, best era of music. You can make a valid case. There was some amazing music that came out of the 70s. Lance Javen, Matthew Wild, thank you. It was killing me. Thank you. My Flock, as everyone says, LOL, love that song. Never gonna break in my stride. Ain't nothing gonna slow me down. Uh-oh. That copyrighted material. Georgia Ayers says, I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more. The Proclaimers. I actually have that album, a vinyl 33 and a third album buried somewhere in the bridge, or what you would call my man cave, or the garage. But yes, that's where it's somewhere in there. Of course, I have no turntable on which to play it. Truth of Miles says the hotel suddenly last summer. Very, very catchy song. The Unapologetic Geek says I find the brain works a lot slower when you live stream. Is that a compliment? I'll take it as one. Thank you very much. That's my soothing voice. It just brings us all. Lance Javen says, Kim Carnes, Betty Davis eyes. Here's a little fun fact for you. Now, as all of you know, Jackie Del Shannon wrote that song and actually recorded it in a little more up tempo, almost like a Nickelodeon sound. There's hollow gold, right? Sweet surprise. In I want to say 77, 78. Jackie Del Shannon was in a movie with the guy who did this, Bobby V. The guy, oh, the night has 1,000 eyes. They did this song, one of those 60s rock and roll light romantic comedies called Let's Live a Little. You know who had a very small part in that film? Kim Carnes. I don't know if that's where they met, but apparently they met somewhere and became friends. And I've always had my suspicions that they met on the set of this now forgotten film. And of course, Jackie Del Shannon's song never went anywhere, but Kim Carnes made it like one of the biggest hits of the 1980s. The Apologetic Geek says, oh, I'm blushing. Thanks, Thrash. Well, no, thank you. You put out great material. I don't give hollow praise. Or you could tell if I was being hollow. Zuplik says, ABBA was in the 70s. Yes, and I love ABBA. In fact, at the Barnstable County Fair tonight, where my granddaughter is with her mother's new boyfriend, there's a 70s cover band, and I wanted them to request Waterloo. I'm sure they won't, but oh, yes, at Waterloo, Napoleon did surrender. That's right. And now I'm going to stop singing because, again, that too is copywritten. Oh, the Apologetic Geek says, now I've got Betty Davis eyes stuck in my head. Well, now you probably have ABBA stuck in your head. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, met Vincent Price in the early 80s at a junior college, got 2 autographs. Well, lucky Lou. You kept one and sold one on eBay, I like. Ken Wilkinson says, I loved ABBA. The Unapologetic Geek says, I got it on the Benny and June soundtrack. Yes, the Proclaimers song is on the Benny and June soundtrack. That was a fun little film. A lot of people didn't like it, but I really liked it. Superplex asks, how many autographs do you have, Hungry Jerk? Yes, Tom, how many do you have? Superplex asks, do you remember 78 records? No, I don't. I mean, I think my grandparents had a couple, but that was a little before my time. I wasn't born until 67. Georgia says, dang, I hate it when a song gets stuck in my head. Trey Rosmeyer says, hey, Lance, thanks for the reminder text earlier. Lance, thank you. If you're reminding people to come to my show, I really, really appreciate it. Lance Javen says, Tim Buck 3, future's so bright, I gotta wear shades. They played that song so often my freshman year in college. It was crazy. Every dance, every gathering, every party. It was just the song never went away, and the group never went anywhere. Apparently, they had solo careers after they divorced. But yeah, that's probably one of the biggest uh, one-hit wonders of the '80s. Tommy Jerk says, "I had 'Don't Worry, Be Happy' stuck in my head." Ah, yeah, that's an earworm if I ever heard it. One. Superflex says Waterloo was their Euro song hit. Well, of course, it's about the Napoleonic Wars. What could be more European? Hmm. Hungry Jerk says, met my wife because of ABBA. There's a story in this somewhere. Please share it. I met mine. I was working in a convenience store and she came in for a pack of cigarettes and I carded her to get her name. I know, everyone thought that's such a creepy story. Hey, it worked. Um, she made a joke about it too. There was a misprint on her driver's license at the time. It said male instead of female. And she said, trust me. And I said, don't worry about it. Anyway, enough of my weird origin stories. Jordia says Betty Davis was still alive when Kim Carnes did her rendition. She certainly was. The Unapologetic Geek says Bobby McFerrin, classic. It certainly was. Isn't he like a college professor now? Skipping down. I had Foreigner's Blue Monday playing in my head. Tracy, that's well, there were songs that get stuck in the head. Oh, Tom Hungry says around 500 autographs, 95% TV people, 5% figure skaters. I didn't realize there were that many figure skaters and some real bad people for historical purposes. Won't ask. Lance Chafin, new shoes. I can't wait. But they also had another hit. They had I can't wait and Point of No Return. Not the one by not the dance hit. The I'm at the point of no return. The Apologetic Geek says, isn't that song, The Future's So Bright, about nuclear war? Or is that just an urban legend? It's actually about a physics student who thinks he's going to have a bright future because he's going to be getting a defense contract after he graduates college. And the implication is the future is not bright because he's going to make a boatload of money, but because we're about to go into World War III. Lance Chafin said, New Order, Blue Monday. Isn't that Blue Moon on Monday? Or no? Oh, nope. I'm sorry. That's Duran Duran. Or is it New Order? I'm confused now. Well, I'm sure one of you work it out. Hey, big guys 45s. Feel free to weigh in at any time. Mike Silva says, cool. Mike, it's cool just having you back with us. Thanks for joining us tonight, guy. He then goes on to say, sorry I'm late, guys. No worry. We kept the soup warm for you. So Blake says, another how do you do? And how do you do? Trey Meyer says, Smoke on the Water, Deep Purple. That's actually one of my favorite Deep Purple songs. Just an amazing, amazing song. Oh, the Unapologetic Geek says, it was Duran Duran. Thank you. I thought so. But I have this thing where once I start to second guess myself, I can't stop. So even though I know that I'm right, I start to think I'm wrong. This is why I can't go on Jeopardy. I tend to overthink things. For those of you who saw my last appearance on Dave Sundstrom's The Good Stuff, we did a live show on Planet of the Apes, something I am a comparative expert on, right? And he did a trivia game, as he always does, right? I got 9 out of 10. You know what I messed up on? Was Dr. Zaius in the TV series Planet of the Apes. Brain. He was the only crossover from the film to the TV show. That's legendary. Any moron would have known that. My 15-year-old granddaughter knows that, and she hasn't seen either the movies or the TV show. But I second guessed myself. I thought it was a trick question. And it was a trick question. The trick was it showed that I'm easily tricked. But like the song goes, 9 out of 10 ain't bad. So don't be sad. That's it. We should do thrash karaoke. No, so should not. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, on our first date, Marianne asked me if she could play her CD. She had an ABBA, and I said no. She had a little hurt look on her face because I had the exact CD in the player. Dude, boom. That is an epic move. Here you are, she's thinking that you just don't care, and you're all good to go. Wow. I had this years ago, I was in college, and there was a girl whose favorite song was Brown Eyed Girl. Took her to a local pub for a couple of drinks. Um, Said, "You want to go play a couple songs on the jukebox?" She goes, "Yeah, sure, sure." I went up ahead of her subtly, so she didn't think I was like leaving her behind. Put the money in, and then very quickly put in B-17, which I'd already known was Brown Eyed Girl. The tricks we play to make people think we're um, considerate. The Apologetic says, not even close to a one hit wonder. I'm guessing he means Blue Moon on Monday. Well, not if it was Duran Duran. For crying out, they still have hits. Lance Chafin says, Eddie Grant, Electric Avenue. I absolutely love that song. It's just, talk about earworm. It's just so catchy. And of course, it's about an urban uprising. So that would make a good creepy classic. And help me out here. Before he became like a reggae singer, or skay, or however you want to call it, wasn't he a doo-wop singer in the 50s or early 60s? I heard that somewhere that Eddie Grant actually started as a studio musician much early on, much like Kenny Rogers. But I can't bring any follow-up facts to that. Joe Dayer says, what do you think of Captain of, I'm going to say, A Lonely Heart? Captain of Her Heart by Double. I think it's, well, anyway, I'm not sure. I'm not sure of it. That's why I'm actually free forming to try to guess what the song actually is, but I'm going to go with I'm not sure. Oh, Superlick says, How Do You Do was a one hit wonder. Well, there's a How Do You Do. Georgie, you correct yourself. Not Heat, but Heart. I see. Still not familiar with the song. Very sorry. I'm sure it'll pop into my head sooner or later. Lance Chafin, Warrant, Cherry Pie. Okay, am I the only person on the planet that remembers Uncle Tom's Cabin? It's one of my favorite hits from the 80s. And you know what? It is so much better than Cherry Pie. In fact, there's a whole story behind it. Warrant, he wanted to do like power ballads and like really hard rock music with like a message that was very, very popular at the time. And the studio said, no, 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 we want this sort of, party song that they're going to play at every college frat party in America, and all the guys will pick out a particularly hot girl and sing it directly to her, and she'll smile like she thinks it's cool, even though it's actually kind of creepy. And it was just going to be like this, like college thing, much like they did with Mambo Number Five and other songs that are really just fun party songs. And he did Cherry Pie with a gun to his head, and he so phoned it in. Apparently, it like you know how this song "Hound Dog" was written on the back of a paper bag. He did. He wrote it on the back of a grocery bag in about 45 minutes. Put it to music, phoned the whole thing in, and the studio said, "Perfect. That's exactly what we want." And he goes, "Really?" And he was typecast as this sort of vapid songmaker, and nobody remembers Uncle Tom's Cabin, which it's right here on YouTube, people. Check it out with the music video. I won't spoil it, maybe I will, but anyway, check it out, and it's a much more intense song with a message. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. Dave Clooney said, "Nice Lance Warrant was great back in the day." I think you can take it, Dave, that I wholeheartedly agree with you. Zupalik says, did you know Dr. Zayas, Dana Gold, has a YouTube talk show? It's very entertaining. I actually did. I've subscribed to it. I haven't gone to it in some time, but I did know that. I don't know how he manages to do it in that character, but uh-oh. It did that thing where it suddenly jumped. Here we go. Big Guys 45 says, I'm back, was eating a veggie burger dinner meat patty. LOL. Meal patty, I'm sorry. Forgive the meat comment. No. More than understand. We've been chit-chatting about music. Hopefully if you couldn't key in, perhaps you could at least we were at least listening. If not, feel free to catch back up. But so far we're talking about one-hit wonders from the 80s. Lance Chafin says Aldo Nota Fantasy. Huge. That I love that song, and I could have sworn that they had another hit, but I think I just remember them doing another rendition of Fantasy. The Apologetic Geek said Safety Dance. Men Without Hats. I think you are right. In fact, I have a story about that too. Originally, they were going to be called Men Without Hate because they were going to be like a protest group. Not that there were many of those back in the 80s, but they were trying to get the whole thing started up again. And apparently there was some misprint in the uh, whatever the studio took to the album company. The studio didn't particularly care. It came up Men Without Hats instead of Men Without Hate. They didn't want to spend the money to redo the jackets. And they go, Men Without Hats, that's almost catchy. That also plays up to a theory I have that American civilization started to go downhill when men stopped wearing hats. Think about it. I won't elaborate. I'll let you think about it. But think about it. In the good old days, men wore fedoras, they wore beanies, they wore bowlers, and we had a civilization. Now, if you're lucky, you got some schlub wearing a ball cap with a couple of people on it nobody's really sure of. And I don't think civilization's gotten any better. The technology's improved, but anyone could do that. But anyway, just think about it and let me know in the comments section if you agree or disagree. Preferably disagree. I love a good argument. Mike Silva says, Kevin, the movie seems to be headed into the wild direction. Bill, many can hope. I transparently missed the beginning of that. Apparently, I'm assuming there's like some discussion of Jack London. But I'll let somebody catch me up if they see fit. Big Guys 45 says Grant had a hit back in 1968 with the band The Equals. That's probably what I'm thinking of. So thank you. I knew he'd been around prior to his one-hit wonder in the early 80s. Thank you. Let's see what else we got going on here. Tom Nugget Jerk says, one of my friends used Brown Eyed Girl too. Worked great with girls with brown eyes, I gotta tell you. I gotta tell you. The Apologetic Geek says, my son loved Electric Avenue when he was little. I haven't had the heart to tell him what it's about. He'll find out in due course. You know, that there's no need to rush sadness along. Yeah. Yeah, he'll figure things out as well in due course. Kenneth Wilkinson says, I am really old. I like the Beatles. There were young people liking the Beatles. In fact, true story, I was actually in a Ben and Jerry's location this a few years ago. Little girly girl behind the counter, and she's playing the Beatles classic hits. And I go, you like the Beatles? And she's like, oh, I love the Beatles. And I go, oh, that's so cool. You know, where'd you get the album? And she goes, album? She just downloaded it. So she wouldn't buy the album. But hey, she was a Beatles fan, so that is something, at least. Tom the Hungry Jerk says Eddie Grant was a whaler. He hunted whales. The Big Guys 45s says their hit single was Baby Come Back. Number one hit in the native UK and number 32 on the US Billboard Hot 100 charts. All I can think of right now is, oh, did I free? Oh, no, I'm just glitching. I haven't frozen yet. Hey, we'll endeavor to persevere. All I can think of is the song from the 80s. Why don't you come back? Please hurry. Why don't you come back? Please. And that's not the song you're talking about. But now I have it stuck in my head. So I will try when I'm not filming, I'll try to find the Equals song of which you speak. Trailer Reminder says, did not know that that he was a doo-wop guy. 68 would be a little late for doo-wop, even in the UK, but it was a similar sound. Kevin Davis in the house says hello there. Hello to you too, Kevin. Welcome to the party. Dave Cloney says Uncle Tom's Cabin was great too. For those of you just tuning in, he means the power ballad by Warrant and not the anti-slavery novel. Trailer Meyer says player big guys. Oh, I get around. I got around before I was married. I don't get around at all now, at all. I'm sort of you can call me the anti-beach boy because I don't get around. Jill over here and get mad and start yelling. Anyway, Big Guys 45 says, don't forget to like and subscribe. Support is always welcomed over here. Thank you again, by the way. Thank you. I always forget to do that myself, actually, but you're right. Let's see how many likes I got. No, I better not mess with it. I'm sure I'll get, what do we have, 11 people now? I'm sure. Oh, 9. I have 11 people and 9 likes. Hey, let's balance the equation, people. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, it did that thing where all of a sudden it like goes bring and springs ahead, and I have to go way back. Tom Hungry Jerk says I'm mainly a 70s soft rock guy. Firefall and Hamilton, Frank, Joe, and Reynolds. Don't pull your love out of me, baby. If you do, then I think that maybe I had one other hit, and I bet at least one of you can name it, and I'm not. But that's one of my favorite 70s songs. Enzo Blick says, Hungry Dirk, do you like bread? Yes, I do, particularly with butter. He likes bread and butter. He likes toast and jam. The Unapologetic Geek says, I would say Robert Palmer, but he's really a two-hit wonder with Addicted to Love and Simply Irresistible. I would swear he had at least a couple more, but skipping down. Liz Javen said, Tracy, player, baby, come back. Apparently there's a coded message going on somewhere. Kevin D says, I am a huge fan of space sci-fi, as are we all. Mike Silva mentioned Bionic Woman and the $6 Million Man. Huge $6 Million Man fan when I was a kid. Absolutely huge. My mom got me the rocket. True story. My mom got me the rocket, and we decided that we were going to turn it into a submarine. My cousin and I, they had one of these big, oversized bathtubs, with the footers and stuff like that. And we got hold of some masking tape, and we put a stuffed animal of some kind. I think it was my cousin's piglet or something. We put it in the rocket. We taped it up and figured it would hold the water. We put it in the tub, and water just came out of everywhere. And I went into my C3PO routine and said, he's dying down there, bring him up. And we brought him up, and well, it was a righteous mess. The rocket didn't hold water, but live and learn. But a huge fan of the $6 Million Man show. Didn't watch Bionic Woman as much. It still broke my heart when she left him. I watched it from time to time, but I couldn't get into the show because she was supposed to be with Steve Austin, and she had a romantic life with others, and I couldn't accept that. Lance Chafin says Lunatic Fringe, Red Rider. That would make a creepy classic because that actually satirizes the Cold War. In fact, there's quotes from Reagan's speeches in it if you listen closely. And didn't Red Rider also do that song, Wouldn't It Be Good to Be in Your Shoes, which I believe was also a reference to the Cold War? Well, I'll do some more digging. Kevin Davis says, I have always wanted to be an astronaut. I did too until I realized I had a fear of heights. Don't laugh. That's a true story. Lance Chafin said, Mike, check out Warehouse 13. Kevin Davis, Robert Palmer, and the Zombie Bunch. Rob Zombie. Zublik says, "What about that song? Pass your duchy to the left-hand side." By the way, what is a duchy? If I remember correctly, it's when the roach. You're not quite down to a roach, but the marijuana cigarette, the Mary Jane you're smoking when it gets really, really down, it's a duchy. And the idea is, don't bogart it. Pass it to the left as quickly as you can to give everybody else their last turn. And Tom, the Hungry Jerk says one hit wonder, early 70s, Richie Lee Jones, Chuck E's in Love. Yes, that was a good one. Chuck E's in Love. Yes, that's a good one. Big Guns 45. Anybody remember Mexican Radio by Wall of Voodoo? I certainly do. But you can't count them as a one-hit wonder because they actually had one of my favorite hits of that time period, Far Side of Crazy, which is possibly one of, again, we can't call it one-hit wonder, but as far as obscure classics goes, great song. That would make a fantastic creepy classic now I think of it, because it's about a serial killer, and it's sort of from the serial killer's point of view, or at least that's one of the interpretations of it. But then again, so is the Falco song Genie. But since my German's a little rusty, I'd probably have to stick with um, the song I was just talking about. But yes, Mexican Radio is a great one. Wish I was back in Tijuana, eating barbecue iguana. Mike Silva says the Jeffersons Band. Do you mean Jefferson's Airplane or Jefferson's Starship? Or one made up of the Jeffersons? Zuplex says Lawrence Welk is for the Geritol generations. Yes, friends. Be sure to use it on the Geritol. I use it all the time, and I don't have the thinning blood. The Apology said they're Commissar. I have no idea the band name. Funny you should mention it. That was Falco. That was his biggest hit to date. It was redone by an American group called After the Fire. That's the English rendition you hear in the States. But Falco actually had some pretty big hits in Europe. He had a few others. He did Rock Me Amadeus when the film Amadeus came out. He had a few other songs. I loved his album Einzelhaft, which is the German word for solitary confinement. I was sort of a Teutonophile when I was in high school, getting back to my German roots. I don't know. Perfect timing as always. But regardless, Falco had some pretty big stuff. He died tragically in an automobile accident, I want to say, in the Caribbean while getting ready to record a new album. Very sad story, but a very fine musician. And yes, I do have an anecdote about everything. Azuplex asks, is this why you wear hats, T-Pawns? Okay. True story. In fact, this would be a great question. I'm going to ask it. Anyone who feels comfortable sharing, anyone who has a personal superstition, particularly one they feel might be humorous, feel free to put it in the comments section. If you don't, please feel free to not share. But I have a personal superstition. I cannot operate a motor vehicle unless I'm wearing a hat. Wait for laughs. It goes back to many years ago. I used to commute. And for those of you who commuted, you always end up either forward or back. You always end up stuck in that low sun glare, either first thing in the morning or right after the dinner rush when that sun's going down. It's right in your eyes. And you can never get the sun visor in your car to protect you. I started wearing a hat, a ball cap specifically, so that I could kind of jockey it to keep the sun out of my eyes when I was on my way to work or way home. One day I forgot my hat, didn't think much of it, and all day long, little weird things just started happening. I was having the worst luck of that day. I made it home safely, obviously. But I go, you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to remember my hat. And then years later, when my little granddaughter was born, I would, as I was leaving, if I didn't have my hat on, but she saw me walking to the door, she'd be like, Pops, hot. and she would remind me to put on my hat. So when I started doing YouTube, I just decided for the sake of good luck and because I like the look, I would wear a ball cap. And that is, as they say, that. Let's see. Oh, Trader Myers says the Wailers were Bob Marley's backup band. Thank you. Thank you. I knew that. I just. The Unapologetic Geek says message retracted. People say that to me all the time. I don't know. I'll have to find out what that means. Kevin Davis says, "What about we built this city?" I actually wrote. I wrote, and I've never submitted it because my understanding is that he isn't as crazy about this stuff as people think he is. I wrote a Weird Al parody of "We Built the City" on rock and roll, and it's "We built this Sunday on Rocky Road," and that is, as they say, that someday I'll submit it to him. Maybe Weird Al, if you're in the if you're in the chat, please say submit that song. I love Jefferson Starship. Loved Starship. They put out some amazing music in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but that song was a cash grab. If people like it, that's great, but it was a cash grab. They even admitted that it was. Lance Javen says, Mike also watched the Sentinel about a cop with heightened senses. Never saw it, but it sounds interesting. What jammin' in the house? Howdy, Thrash and the gang. What jammin'? How are you doing? Great to see you. You got to check out What Jammin' sometime. He has some great dad jokes that are almost as good as mine. No, I'm kidding. They're actually better. In fact, I believe I've stolen at least one. So check out What Jammin' and his great series of dad jokes and knock-knock jokes and other things online. They're a riot. Big Guys 45 says after the fire. Did I say after the fire or after the fall? But yes, it is after the fire, in case I was wrong. Tumbling Jerk says Falco. I think you were right. Devo, Whip It Good. Devo did some great stuff. Whip It is probably the song they remember best for. They actually put out 2 songs on the heavy metal soundtrack, although I think only one of them actually made the final cut of the soundtrack. But hey, they were luckier than Blue Oyster Cult, who actually, they thought they were going to be offered not just a track, they thought they were going to be like doing Pink Floyd's The Wall or Queen doing Flash Gordon. They thought heavy metal was going to be their project, and they actually wrote a whole slew of tracks to be the soundtrack to heavy metal, and were disappointed. And Fire of Unknown Origin, where most of those tracks ended up, some great stuff. Great stuff. But next time you listen to Fire of Unknown Origin, keep heavy metal in mind, and you'll be like, wow, a lot of these do sync up to various segments in the film. Big Guys 45 does confirm the equal song was Baby Come Back. I'll have to check that out. Unapologetic Geek says to Big Guys, thank you, sir. I'm assuming for after the fire, not after the fall. Or I just want to say fire. Well, either way. Lenz Schaefer points out it was Der Kommissar was in German. Alles klar, Herr Kommissar. And I think my comment section froze. I'll try to catch up. And I'll try to go back because it did a thing where first it was frozen and then it went zingo. Wow. I am way behind. I'll try to catch up. But wow. Holy, there's a bunch of you guys' comments. All right, here we are. Der Kommissar. Anybody here remember Kiss in the Dark by Pink Lady at all? 1979, 37 Billboard charts. I remember the group, they had a short-lived TV series. It was one of those comedy musical variety shows like Sonny and Cher. I don't remember the song Kiss in the Dark. Let's see. Darrell Johnson in the house says, hey, Thrash, hey to you. Trader of Myers says, Paul Young sang that song called What You Come Back, Please Hurry. Yes, Paul Young was the person in question. Anybody here remember I Do the Rock by Tim Curry? Of course I do. I actually have that on a collection album from the 70s. I forget what it was called, but it was one of those collections. But to me, he'll always be Dr. Frankenfurter. Let's see. Oh, I have a personal message here from Big Guys 45s. Nick Crenshaw, wouldn't it be good in 1984? Thank you. So it was Nick Crenshaw and not Red Ryder. That makes perfect sense now. I do recall that now. But similar vocals. And Tom Jerk says, Nina, 99 Red Balloon, speaking of German musicians, and she was so cute. She was just a doll. Nick Crenshaw sing the song Wouldn't It Be Good to Be in Your Shoes? Thank you. Wasn't he in La Bamba? Didn't he play Buddy Holly? The Apologetic Geek says, Sweet Jane, I know the Cowboy Junkie is still around to this day, but I'm pretty sure that's the only charted single. I think you're right. I think they had one song on a soundtrack, but I think that was their only charted hit. Kevin Davis says, I think there was an 80s version of Major Tom, but not by Bowie. And I remember skipping down when I was going flippity flop. Yes, that was another German. There were a lot of German musicians in the 80s. That was another German, Peter something or other, did Major Tom. Kevin Davis says, then there was She Blinded Me with Science by Thomas Dolby. The Unapologetic Geek says, Peter Schilling. Thank you. Georgia here says, Billy Joel was telling a story about how bad times were and that how he came up with We Didn't Start the Fire. There's actually a follow-up song to We Didn't Start the Fire, which is even more terrifying than We Didn't Start the Fire. I can't remember who did it, but check it out. Kevin Davis, Big Guys 45 says, Kevin Davis, that was Peter Schilling who made the answer record to Space Oddity. That's a great song, by the way. Yes, thank you. And Unapologetic says, and that is Thomas Dolby. Thank you. Skipping down, what Jamin says, I like Spirit in the Sky. Great song. There's actually a couple of different renditions of it, and I like them all. Lance Jamin says, Weird Science, Oingo Boingo. That is actually a great song, and the scene where the rejects of the women that were being made in the laboratory, when they're pushing that big wheel, and it's not from Conan the Barbarian. That's actually from White Zombie, for you sci-fi buffs. So to play not only whoever did the video for that was a huge 30s sci-fi buff, because not only does it reference Frankenstein, it also references White Zombie, which was again a huge sci-fi horror film from the pre-code period. Big Guys 45 says, after the fire, we're European, not British, not Americans. I am so sorry. I always thought After the Fire were American. It was the English version that they sang. But I did not. Thank you. I honestly did not know that. Learn something new every day. I'm actually going to steal that fact. That's what I do, by the way. When people correct me, I put it in my fact memory bank and then present it as my own material later on. And they're like, well, somebody told you. Well, yeah, everyone has to tell you everything. So somebody told you something. Terrell Eugene Bellinger, and hello to you, Terrell, says, do you know that Juice Newton's Angel in the Morning is actually a cover? Yes. I did know that. Great song, by the way. She actually put out some great stuff. She was sort of the early 80s answer to Taylor Swift. The Unapologetic Geek says, oh man, Denny Elfman hates Weird Science. He does? Oh, I went to a party actually with Ian Mitchell. The other guy, not Anthony Michael Hall, the other guy from Weird Science. They were both from Massachusetts, and one of them was up visiting a friend and actually went to a party in my college town. And I got to meet him. Great guy. He doesn't do movies anymore. He's now an English professor somewhere, I believe. Tracy Meyer says, Murray Head, one night in Bangkok. wasn't he the original Judas in uh Jesus Christ Superstar? Lance Javen says to Paul, Heart and Soul. Good song. Unapologetic Geek says he claims he wrote it entirely in his head on a single car trip home from the studio. I believe it. I believe it. Tom Young Jerk says Oingo Boingo were in the back to school. Yes, they were. They were. They made a feature film themselves, actually, or at least did the soundtrack and did guest parts in it. It was what was it called? Forbidden Zone from like 1981, 1982. It was a black and white feature film that was designed to look like an old 30s uh, animated short, but feature film length. It's very cute. A little off color, but I liked it. Lance Javen says Juice Newton, Queen of Hearts. Great song. Mike Sylvia says Night of the Living Dead movie 1968. Yes, we've talked about that at great length. Possibly my favorite horror movie of all time, or sci-fi movie, depending on which one you want to decide. It is. Terrell Eugene Bellinger says, correction, Angel of the Morning. Trey Meyer says, Falco is dead. So sad. Yes, it really is. Terrell Bellinger said, Angel of the Morning was written by Chip Taylor, who is the younger brother of John Voight, and uncle of Angelina Jolie. I never knew that. That's a great fun fact. Tom Lungadrick says, had Bud growing up like the Sparks. Unapologetic, I'll come in again. The Unapologetic Geek says some of the best songs are cash grabs. I can't argue with you there. That being said, though, that the same group that gave us White Rabbit and Someone to Love gives us We Built This City, and you kind of have to go, and I don't want to sound like a music snob, but I just think they could have aimed a little higher with We Built This City. Although my rendition, We Built This Sunday on Rocky Road, I think is a classic. Of course, if anybody remember, I'll come in again. Yeah, I'm not even glitching anymore. My brain is just baking inside my skull. If any of you remember the song I'm a Magnet and You Are Steel, I wrote another song for Weird Al called Because I'm a Maggot and You're an Eel. And that one was just plain gross. So I will spare you. But yes, some great songs were actually cash grabs. Well, look at Everybody Was Kung Fu Fighting. That was a huge hit. Lance Chafin, level 42, Something About You. Hungry Jerk says Ringo Starr had a song, Oh, no, 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 I don't smoke it more in the 70s. He sure did. Well, Jimin says, thank you, Thrash. No, thank you. Cindy D says, sorry, my sister in Florida called. I hope she's staying cool. Daryl Johnson said, Patrick Hernandez. Oh, it did it again. Hold that thought. I did not forget you. Yeah, when I get too far behind in my live stream, it just sort of kicks me up or out, I should say. So I'm going to scroll back. Wow, you guys are just really active, and I really appreciate that. I'll try to catch up. Born to Be Alive, great song. The Apologetic Geek says, I'm making a note of that anecdote for when I do my heavy metal review. Praise from Caesar. Thank you. Mike Sylvia says, Barry Buntrock. There's no time for that, Susan. Wait, I have a better idea. CC McNamara. On with the plan. Barry, my man. Susan Talbot. Why do I even try assorted villains? Hey, it's those kids. I feel like I just did freeform poetry. I'm sure that'll make much more sense when I review it later. Liz Chafin said Carl Douglas Kung Fu Fighting. It's funny, I just got there. We were just talking about that. Daryl Johnson says Norman Greenbaum, Spirit in the Sky. Yes, there's under other renditions as well. Tom Longer Jerk says Pink Lady was Sid and Marty Krofft show. No, they may have had some influence on it, but it was a prime time uh, musical comedy variety show. It wasn't very good. It certainly tried. The big problem was the two young ladies barely spoke any English. They were very cute and had a lot of charisma, but you couldn't understand a word they were saying. Cindy D says, I'm sorry, Liz Jeffin said Cindy Frida. From ABBA. Actually, it wasn't from all of ABBA. It was, what's her name, who was doing a solo number. Tom the Hungry Jerk said Nina had a lot of hair in her pits. She was still cute. She was European. You got to cut him some slack. Um, Skipping down. Peter Schilling, Major Tom. Thanks, Len Shavin. You were right. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, I'm assuming means Rocket Man is on YouTube. William Shatner's Rocket Man is on YouTube. It's great. He actually did that for, I want to say, a sci-fi documentary in the 70s. I Melt With You, Bad English, great one-hit wonder. Yep. Skipping down. Metro Berlin. Berlin had a few hits. You can't call them a one-hit wonder. They had Take My Breath Away on the soundtrack for Danger Zone. Highway to the Danger Zone. Top Gun. No More Words is possibly my favorite. A few others. Some were off color, but they used to play them on Night Flight. Speaking of Night Flight, like we were some time ago, Daryl Johnson, The Buggles video killed the radio star. The first video to be played on MTV. They should play it again, so it'll be the last. What Jamin, Buffalo Springfield, for what it's worth. I'll give you that one. Great song. Lance Jeffers says Ian Mitchell Smith. Thank you. Yes, that was the gentleman. And of course, all anybody wanted to know was what was it like to kiss Kelly LeBrock. I had his career in my thoughts. I said to him, I go, "What have you got coming out?" And he actually told me. For those of you who remember Emo Phillips, he had just canned a movie with Emo Phillips. It was a remake of Journey to the Center of the Earth, and well, there's a whole other story behind that. I'll actually have to do that in the review. Apparently, what the test screenings wasn't well received, and it was put together with some other footage and was even worse well received. The Apologetic Geek says, I was about to say he was a school teacher, but you beat me to it. Daryl Johnson said, Funky Town, Lips Inc., great. One of the catchiest songs of all time. Big Guys 45 says Holiday by the Other Ones, 1987, number 29 on the Billboard Hot 100. Soft Cell, Tainted Love. A lot of people don't realize that's a cover, but it's one of those covers where I like it better than the original, although the original is good as well. Car Wash is super. Ring My Bell, Anita Ward. That song was so overplayed in the 70s. It drove me to the point of despair. Tom Looking Jerky says Rocky Horror probably 100 times. Seen Rocky Horror probably 100 times. I saw it dozens of times. Not close to 100, but definitely dozens. Kevin David says, well, sorry to stay short, but I have some stuff to take care of. Kevin, thank you for joining us. It was great just to have you. Take care. We'll see you again really soon. I saw something by Danny Staten. I almost caught up. Gosh darn it. Greetings from South Carolina. Rupert Holmes, Pina Colada. I talked about Rupert Holmes in one of my creepy classics. Hungry Jerk says, Bonus is the car wash. Oh, yeah. Skipping down because I want to try to catch up with you guys. If I skip over your comments, feel free to repeat them if you see something tantalizing that I miss. The Unapologetic Geek says, gotta go. Fun hanging out with you guys. Wholesome group you've got, Thrash. Well, Mikasa's Sukas, I'm glad you enjoy our group. Come back and see us anytime you feel like it. And let me know when you have another upcoming, don't tell me, public domain theater coming up. Peace and chicken grease. Cindy D says, come on, Eileen, Dexy's Midnight Runners. You know, they actually had like 14 albums in the UK. They were huge in the UK. They did have one other hit in the United States, a cover of "I'm in Heaven." I'm in heaven. Oh, Tom Hungry Drake says Frank Goes to Hollywood. They all have died. Is that legit? I did not know that. Superplex says, "Do you remember the Macarena song? How could you not?" Skipping down. It's coming. Eileen nails on the chalkboard. Superplex says the ketchup song. I don't know the ketchup song. Is it catching up on Friday? Ketchup was my granddaughter's first word. True story. Black Coffee in Bed by Squeeze. I love Squeeze. Somewhere I have that album. I think it's just called Squeeze Hits, but I love Black Coffee in Bed. I love that whole album. They were that 80s easy listening stuff that I just very cool stuff. Blue Suede, Hooked on a Feeling. I thought Hooked on a Feeling was by Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Or am I thinking of a different song? If I am, please correct me. Tom Hungry Drake says the ketchup song in Spanish. Ooh, getting cocky. Superlex says pass the Dutchie on the left-hand side. I thought we covered that one. Daryl Johnson says that's a good song, Tom. Am I the only one who doesn't know the ketchup song? Cindy D says Heartbeat by Don Johnson. I prefer the DeFranco family. Heartbeat. It's a love beat, and a love beat is a true sensation because a heartbeat is a love beat, and I'm gonna get dinged for copyright infringement. Yeah, try to get that out of your head. Anyway, skipping down. Daryl Johnson says, I have it on my playlist. We talked about many songs there, but I'm sure any of them are good ones. Big Guy 45 says, anybody remember Shut Up in Your Face by Joe DeLucia at all? I certainly did. When we used to have like a music class in middle school, and we get to have that one elective song, that was the song we played week after week after week after week. Skipping down. It keeps doing it. Oh, here we are. Eddie Murphy Potter all the time. Ugh. Although they play that song all the time on Dave's Archives, which I love. I love Dave's Archives. I love his vintage commercials. I hate commercials nowadays. Commercials from 30, 40 years ago, I absolutely can't get enough of. So I watch Dave's Archives. Check out Dave's Archives if you can. And he's got some great stuff on there, but he loves to play that song. Danny put a link in the comments. William Shatner, Rocket Man on the Daily Dan's good stuff. Thank you, Dan. Love and Marriage for Married with Children. That's another good one. Terrell Bellinger says Friends and Lovers by Gloria Loring. Duplex says Rocket Man is quintessential. Mystery Men and Monsters says Thrash, Mystery Men and Monsters. Okay, guys, I want you to say it all together now for Mystery Men and Monsters. I have conceded the point. As of last week, I've conceded the point that Robot Monster is, in fact, a sci-fi classic. And heck, if it's public domain, maybe we can all convince the unapologetic geek to show that one. I think someone had picked up the copyrights on it. But Mystery Men and Monsters, always good to see you. Mike Sylvia says, seen Killdozer the movie 7 times on YouTube. It is on YouTube, isn't it? Tom Hungry Jerk says, I broke my sister's tainted love 45 growing up on purpose. I got smacked by my mom. Yeah, they'll do that. Mystery Men and Monsters says, Rupert Holmes, Remember When is one of the best TV shows of all time. I was talking about that ages ago. Remember I did a thing on Rupert Holmes when I was doing my creepy classics. Skipping down. Cindy D, In a Big Country by Big Country. I thought they had one other hit, but I will yield to you. Lance Chapin said no bots yet. Yeah, I think we threw a wrench in their works. A wrench in their works. Do you remember Vanessa Williams? I certainly do. Oh, wait, there's more. Had a singing career, the best of times. Yes, best of last, best for last. Save the best for last, he then goes on to say. Thank you, Zoop. Jordan Years says, Infringement rights can be royal pain in the butt. They certainly can, particularly because fair usage is one of the most subjective terms of all time. Sometimes people put on an entire movie and it's fair usage. Sometimes you sing one line and you get dinged. And you can challenge it, but you're never gonna win. Daryl Johnson, Blues Brothers Soul Man. I love the Blues Brothers soundtrack. In fact, I like a lot of the songs that didn't make it. Uh Sink the Bismarck was great. And the hooker guy. Lee Hooker, Walk That Walk. I thought it was a crime they didn't put that on the Blues Brothers soundtrack, but I believe there was like some copyright issue with that actually. While we're on the subject of copywritten, Trethos Myers says, "I love retro commercials." Then definitely you want to check out Dave's archives. What jammin'? I have always liked They Might Be Giants. You know they're actually from Lincoln, Massachusetts. Haven't met either one of them, but some people I know have. They've been putting out some amazing work, particularly in the 80s and 90s, but they're still around to this day. A lot of people have a love for Killdozer. Cool. There's a lot of movies about like demonically possessed cars. Zerplik says, didn't Mad Magazine sue about the fair usage of songs and won in the Supreme Court? There's a bell ringing in my head. I think you are right. I think you're right because yeah, I can't remember all the details, but that's ringing in my head. Mike Silva said, seen Star Wars Holiday Special movie 8 times on YouTube. You know, I won't see that on general principle. When that first aired, my mother was punishing me and wouldn't let me watch it. And she said, you can watch it next time. You can watch it next time. When it's on next time, you can watch it next time. It never aired again on network television. And I punished my mother for years because of that. And it's on YouTube now, and I can watch it anytime, and I won't. Because I want to go to my grave never having seen that in its entirety. And Mom, let that be on your head. I'm a spiteful kid, I know. Anyway, skipping ahead. And Mom, I love you, you know that. Skipping ahead. Lance Craven said, watch Suburban Sasquatch. Sounds interesting, but I haven't seen it. Mystery Men and Monsters says, ooh, They Might Be Giants is a good movie, too. There's a movie, They Might Be Giants? I'm not familiar with the movie. Huh. Clue me in, Daddy-O. Mike Silva says, McDonald Land commercials from the 70s. McDonald's had the best commercials in the 70s. They really did. They still put out some good ones to this day, but they really had some great commercials back then. Dave actually spotlights them and talk about how they actually, sometimes it's just like mini movies. Yeah. Denny Staten says, the golden age of TV, Larry Storch, Mandela effect. Thank you, Danny, for pointing that out. Also, those of you who haven't subscribed to Pat's The Golden Age of TV, please do. He's putting out some incredible material. He's been getting some great guests to do interviews with. I know most of you are actually from his channel. In fact, most of you started watching me when he was on hiatus and I started doing my first live chats. But in the unlikely event you don't, please check him out. Tom Hungry Jerk says, watch The Great Escape the other day. One of my faves. I love that movie so much. Between the star power and the action, and it's just such a great movie. Oh, now one of you shared their pet superstitions. Hey, that's okay. And for those of you who don't believe in superstitions, that's cool too. Oh, and for those of you who just joined, a little while ago, we were talking about pet superstitions that we have. Mine is that I can't operate a motor vehicle without wearing a hat. But feel free to put yours in the comment section if you have one. Cindy D said, My Sharona by The Knack. Great song. She just passed on recently. Cancer, I want to say. She was actually one of their groupies. And if I remember the story correctly, she may have actually been underage when she started going to their shows. But I'll leave that to subjection. But it's a great song. Mystery Man and Monsters says George C. Scott stars in the movie. Patton? I know it wasn't The Great Escape, but he did a number of war movies himself. Mike Sylvie says Mystery's seen it already. Superblick says best commercials were by beer companies. They made some astounding ones, particularly with the Super Bowl. Lance Chafin says, I spit in your grave in the last house on the left. That would make a really, really, really dark double feature. I've seen both of them, but I'd be cautious who I recommended those two. But yeah, for sheer horror, if you're a Wes Craven fan, yes. Kevin Wilkins says, good night, everyone. I have to go. Kenneth, thank you so much for joining us, as always. Tom the Jerk says, Pat gave me one of those shirts the other day. Aren't they great? A lot of people say goodnight to Ken. Danny Staten saying The Hills Have Eyes. I assume you mean the Wes Craven original. I don't know if I think I saw the remake. Yes, I did, actually, now that I think of it. It wasn't bad. I think the original was better. Daryl Johnson says They Might Be Giants, often abbreviated TMBG, is an American alternative rock band formed in 1982 by John Flansborough and John Linnell. Yes, they are. And I believe their original name was El Grupo Grande. And they played a Cinco de Mayo festival, I think when they were still in college or possibly even in their teens. Mike Silva says, Danny, the 70s films. Oh, yes, I love 70s horror movies and sci-fi as well. Mystery Man and Monster says, no, Scott is in They Might Be Giants. He plays a judge who thinks he is Sherlock. Why is this ringing a bell? Was this a made-for-TV movie, guys? All of a sudden, this is coming back to me. And wait. They Might Be Giants is actually a reference to the Epic of Don Quixote. Because when he charges the windmills, he said they might be giants or something to the effect. I'm going back to freshman year literature course. But I think I'm on the right page, at least. Thank you. Cindy D says, interesting thrash, thank you. Well, you're quite welcome. I'm not sure which fun fact you're thanking me for, but you're quite welcome. Georgia says, like George C. Scott in the movie Taps. My wife loves the movie Taps. I saw it in the theaters, too. Loved it. My wife loves it, too. Those of you might remember, Tom Cruise, it was a very early part for him. He plays the Red Beret, who kind of, well, we all know what he does, and I don't have any spoilers. But yeah, it was so funny when my wife and I were dating, that movie came up, and it's like, wow, we both loved it, but we've never seen it together. And yes, George C. Scott was great in it, although it's a very small part, I'm afraid. Danny Staten says original all the way. Yes, well, then you go with Wes Craven, you got to go with the originals. Superblick says George C. Scott did The Formula with Marlon Brando. He certainly did. Mystery Men and Monsters, you nailed it, Thrash. Thank you. I knew I'd get there eventually. Danny Staten says, I'm a paranormal investigator, South Carolina. You know, loved The Legend of Boggy Creek. We've talked about The Legend of Boggy Creek. We talked about that when I was on Dave's channel. We were both on Dave's channel talking about cryptozoology. Yes, The Legend of Boggy Creek is possibly my favorite Bigfoot-themed movie. And again, while we're on Danny, I was plugging the heck out of you before you came on. If you haven't subscribed to Danny Staten's channels, please do. He's got some great stuff. But particularly, check out his 13-hour this coming Saturday. Are you doing it this Saturday? Oh, but it'll make a liar out of me. But check out Danny's next 13th hour. Again, it's sort of like Night Flight with cutting edge music and shorts and other stuff. It's fun. Skipping ahead, Hungry Jerk says met Michael Berryman from The Hills Have Eyes, an old associate, a person I used to work with and hung out with. We used to have movie. We put on movie nights many years ago. He actually went out to California to try to make it big. And he said he'd worked on a few films here and there, but his big claim to fame was, I want to say, Saturday the 14th. I think that was the name of it. But anyway, he got to meet Michael Berryman and said he was the nicest, funniest guy you'd ever meet, which is funny because he usually played creeps, but he's actually really, really funny in real life. It's something of a practical joker. So yeah, I know someone who's met him too. Rest in peace. He also was in Weird Science while we're on the subject. We keep talking about Weird Science tonight. Zubalik says George C. Scott also did the film. I think you mean Flam Man with Michael Sarrazin, not Flan Man. I love that. It's one of my favorite period piece comedies. Great movie. Lance Chafin said Taps, Tom Cruise, Sean Penn, Timothy Hutton. Yep, they were all in it. Mystery Men and Monsters also says love the film Flim Flam Man. Say that 5 times fast. Cindy D says Ice Ice Baby Vanilla Ice, the best selling it one hit wonder of all time. Sad. I do like the Queen song it was based on. I don't know if it deserves to be the biggest one hit wonder of all time. Tom Longer Jerk says early roles for those guys, Lance. It certainly was. Cindy D says the tidbit about the knack thresh. Oh, you're quite welcome. You're quite welcome. Yeah, I know I give many, but Mike Sylvia says he has love for Jaws 3D. I remember there were a lot of 3D movies that were coming out at that time. The only problem with the 3D movies, in my opinion, was they spent so much time putting in the epics of the elements of the gimmick of the 3D. And sometimes they lost some of the story. But I did. A lot of them were good. What was it? Adventures in the Forbidden Zone? Destruction of Jared Sin? There's one with Michael Ironside as the bad guy. And a very young little redhead, Molly Ringwald. That was 3D that I loved. Oh, Danny Staten says 13 o'clock live with Danny Staten this week. Jeff Meldrum interview, the Wrights Bigfoot book, FYI, and he gives a link on the Daily Den blog after Saturday Night Live. I will be there. Be there and or be square. Lance Chafin says, check out Kane Hodder to Hell and Back. Very good documentary. I will definitely check that out. Tom Longer Jerk says Vanilla Ice movie Cool as Ice is so horrible, yet it's so funny. I haven't seen it. I'll take your word for it. Mike Sylvia says worst movie I've ever seen is the Garbage Pail Kids movie. I've heard that was absolutely dreadful. I've never seen it. Well, Jamin says, I laugh out loud. Mike, I used to collect the cards. Me too. Although Dinosaur Attack were my favorite. Skipping down. Dennis Newton says, I'll be showing some thrash videos, playing some music, and some surprises. Looking forward to all of those things. I'm a raving narcissist, Danny. Thank you. Looking forward to it. Mike Sylvia says, Hungry, I saw that movie when I was 8 in 1992 on VHS. Worst movie ever made. Riff Tracks version was hilarious. Wow. In 1992, I would have been... Give me a second. I turned 20 in 87. I would have been 25. Terrell Eugene Bellinger says, Sinead O'Connor, nothing compares to you. Hit number 1 on the Billboard charts 2 years before her controversial appearance on SNL. Oh, what happened on SNL? I hadn't heard. In which she infamously tore the picture of the Pope John Paul II. Yes, we all remember. Hungry Jerk says our teacher would take us to see 3D movies in the 70s, 50s movies. Oh, yeah, I can see that. Lance Chafin says Future Zone, Space Hunter. Sounds like I confused 2 different movies. But yes, it was one of the ones I was thinking about was one of those 2 movies. Zublik says Howard the Duck was supposed to be terrible. Howard the Duck was, in its day, the biggest commercial disaster of all time. It would cost like $50-60 million to make. Don't know why. It was absolutely death in the box office. And I saw it. I saw it in the theaters. And it was possibly one of the most disjointed, incoherent movies I had ever seen. They couldn't decide if they wanted to make it a dark comedy, a sci-fi action movie, a romantic comedy. They just couldn't decide. It looked almost like it was just re-edited so many times. There's the scene that really burns my tail feathers. Howard and his compatriots. Howard comes from another dimension. and he's talking to this doctor played by the principal from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, whose name eludes me for the moment, who's been possessed by these dark overlords coming from another dimension. And the possessed doctor's like, "We will come from another dimension. We will destroy you." And Howard's like, "Yeah, beings from another dimension, of course, happens all the time." And I'm watching it going, are you trying to be ironic? The premise of the movie is a being from another dimension comes to Earth, and he's doubting about the possibility of beings from another dimension coming to Earth. I mean, Highlander 2 was more coherent than this. I think they should have gone with Bucky O'Hare. I think that would have been a much, much, much better movie. Certainly better than the kiddie cartoon they made out of it. Daryl Johnson says Exorcist 2. I think I saw that, didn't care for it. Mike Sylvia says, was cool. I knew someone who had the cards in my first grade class. He brought them in. I was 7 in 91. Guessing he means the Garbage Pail Kids. Zublik says, saw that episode on SNL. It was one of the most watched in recorded history. Mike Sylvia said, talking about the Garbage Pail Kids cards thrash. Kind of figured. Eugene Bellinger points out that Nothing Compares to You was written by the one and only Prince. May he rest in peace. Yes, may he rest in peace. And yes, he wrote a number of songs for starlets at the time. Denny Staten said, LOL, I had 6 kids by 1992. Denny, how many children do you actually have? You mentioned 3 in one of your posts today, but it seems to me that there are more. How many do you have, if you don't mind me asking? How many do you have and Toto? Big Guys 45 says, I'm back. He's back. Big Guys 45 says, feel free to support and subscribe. Thank you so much, peeps. Likewise, I am sure. Thank you so much for being my advocate. Mike Sylvia said, love that cartoon thrash. I like the cartoon too, but if you saw the actual story in Echoes of Future Past, it was much more, I wouldn't say it was adult, although Echoes of Future Past certainly was, but it was much more cutting edge. It was grittier. It had more of a feel to it. The afternoon cartoon they made for Bucky O'Hare was far, far, far sanded down. No one ever got killed. They just all ran away saying, "Ooh, the orangutan's coming to hit us." And in the comic book, it's more of a subliminal suggestion. The computer doesn't automatically take everybody over. Complex. That's very much like Skynet. Doesn't control their minds. So when they're freed, they can all be instantly forgiven. It's more of a subliminal. The Toad Empire is very much like the Americans. They're a bunch of hedonistic pleasure seekers who basically want more free time and more money so they can go to leisure pursuits, sporting events, movies, buy fun gadgets, novelty items. Again, like they're the American consumer culture. And they build a supercomputer to basically make their lives better, to take care of all the mundane activities so they can pretty much just kick back and have fun. And the computer goes sentient and goes, if you're going to have a better quality of life, you need a better standard of living. And to do that, we need more resources. And the best way to do that is to conquer the universe, and then you'll have all the resources. And since I have taken over all the mundane day-to-day activities, the Toad people can turn themselves into a vast military complex. It's actually a fairly interesting story, but it's, again, very sanded down for the cartoon. Mr. Ben Monster says, man, Howard the Duck comics are great, but that movie stank. Wasn't it a Lucasfilm? It certainly was. I can't find them. Although if you saw my earlier post that you saw, I found some great epic comic books. I have a couple Howard the Ducks somewhere. I can't find them. I may have traded them to a friend. But yeah, the comic book was great. Hungry Jerk says, I collected Wacky Pack stickers in the 70s. Still got them. My granddaughter, when she was little, and I used to collect newer versions of the Wacky Pack cards and stickers. Mike Silva says the cone heads. That had its moments. Anybody remember Rain in May by Max Werner? 81, 1974. Not the top of my head. I love Eddie Rabbit's Love a Rainy Night. Cindy D says the family of Prince produced group sing Nothing Compares to You. Prince did not. I'll buy that. Yes, Superlick said Prince wrote Manic Monday for the Bengals. I think he was having a relationship with Susan Hoff at the time. Pardon me, he also later had a relationship with who's that Scottish singer? She was living with Don Johnson at one point, but he wrote a song for her, and I believe they were also briefly romantically involved. And he, of course, wrote a song for Sheila E., who they may have just been friends, but he did write one of her big hits. I want to say it ain't much. Whatever that song was, I can't think of Save My Life. I can think of It Ain't Much. Lisa Fields is in the house. Says hi everyone, and hello to you too as well. Always good to see you. Oh, Danny Staten says I have 7 kids. The oldest is 37, youngest is 14, and I have. Are you sitting down? 16 grandchildren. Did have 17, but my granddaughter passed away from cancer last year. Oh, she was 8. I'm so sorry. Rest in peace, Angel. Very, very sorry. That was very sad. Mike Sylvia says, Thrash who? It's Thrash Pondo Pons. Or assuming I'm talking about something else that, well, Mike, it remind me who it was, what the context of the who was, and I'll try to point out the what of the who. I mean, I'll know who the who are. Danny Staten says, thanks everyone. Been a rough year for me. Lost my mom. I remember that. Again, rest in peace. Danny's mom on the 24th of March. And my oldest brother in January. Oh, I didn't know that either. Very, very sorry for your loss, Danny. Very sorry. Mike Sylvia says, mean the Who band Thrash. You know, I almost said something. Actually, I did. When I said we all know who the Who are. That was one of their catchphrases in the early 80s. But yeah, no, the Who were great. I don't know how many of you watch the Cartoon Network, but there's a show on it called Joe Para Talks to You, I think it's called. And it's this sort of homespun cool guy who he's very tall and wears glasses and he has a pit basset hound and he basically tells stories about the good life to people. And he does a whole episode about how even though he's like well into his 30s, he hears Baba O'Reilly for the first time and it changes his life. And everyone's like, you've never heard the song before? But anyway, yes, love the Who. I have about a half a dozen of their albums somewhere. Cindy D says, I know the feeling, Danny. My 21-year-old daughter lost her 7-month-old child in April, and we both went a wedding day on the 4th of July and came back with COVID. Cindy, you two have had a very rough year, and commiserations. I can't commiserate enough. Sorry for your losses. Mike Sylvia says, seen it already, Thrash. Yeah, you're ahead of the game. Most of the things I've seen, you've also seen. Let's see what else we get going on here. I think I'm caught up. I really do. But if I've missed anyone's questions or comments or something of any importance, while I was going through, because I tend to skip the ones where people like say hi to each other. If I skip something more important than that, please feel free to say it again, just so I don't overlook it. I was trying to like speed through to try to catch up for a while because you guys were way ahead of me. Danny Staten says, on the brighter side, my mom's estate was valued at $3.5 million. Well, that's a brighter side. And when probate's settled, I'm going to be well of like Richie Rich. Well, and if I remember correctly, you said you were going to adopt me as well. And by my recollection, that's a verbal agreement. And if you go back, I'll sue for $3.5 million. So I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But if we ever do get a chance to meet up, either here in New England or down in the Carolinas, I'll let you pick up the tab for lunch. How's that? We'll call it even Steven. Zuplik says, we must endure for our loved ones in spite of our suffering, Denny. Zuplik, that might be the most eloquent thing you've ever said. Thank you. I am going to use it and take credit for it, which is, from me, the greatest compliment I can provide. Terrell Eugene Bellinger says, gangsta rap and grunge were already phased out by the time pop started to take over in the late 90s. Yes. Hungry Jerk. Hungry Jerk goes on to say, my street name is Gangsta Nerd. I'll buy that. Mr. Ben Monster says, Danny Dollars. I'll buy that. Mike Sylvia says, hungry cool. George Ayer says, heard he had to pay out a lot of money for ripping off a few songs with Ice Ice Baby. Yeah, he never got the rights to the Queen song right up the gate. He just never did. He added one or two beats to change it a little. But if what was the famous one? George Harrison with My Sweet Lord is a ripoff of He's So Fine, and he settled for that one. So if he lost for He's So Fine, yeah, I'm sorry, Vanilla, I can't have your back with Ice Ice Baby. Mike Silva says, I'd buy that for $1. That catchphrase went on for so long. RoboCop, 1987 classic movie. It certainly was. Cindy says, thank you, Lisa, my first grandchild. Oh no, I had no idea it was your first. Oh my gosh. When my first granddaughter was on the way, the level of anxiety, because my daughter was in Texas at the time, and the level of anxiety I endured because I couldn't even like check on her on a day-to-day basis was like more than I could actually stand. And I didn't even get a chance to see the baby until she was 8 months old. And then to add insult to injury for the insulted injury, the day they were supposed to fly home, my wife went out to help them fly back to New England. There was this really nasty storm that was supposed to hit New England and it missed us. And I go, thank God New England's not getting that storm. The baby's flight won't be delayed. And I was bartending that night and I was euphoric because I was going to get home and the girls were going to be home and meet me. And a couple of my regulars came in and they said, so Bob, you know what happened in Texas, huh? And I go, no, what happened in Texas? And they go, a freak hailstorm that canceled all the flights. And I had a nervous breakdown. Literally, not figuratively. I had a mini meltdown right there at the bar because I'm like, okay, that's a funny one. New England, known for its flight canceling storms, gets spared, but Texas, which hasn't had snow since the days of the conquistadors, they get a hailstorm. Funny. Would you deny these blessings of the Lord? LOL, I probably will be heading up that way in March or April of next year, heading to New York to see friends. Blue Line Bigfoot, I'll stop by and visit fish. Oh, that'd be awesome. New York is actually fairly close to New England. That'd be great. Looking forward to it already. Thank you. Mike Sylvie says, Kentucky Fried Movie from the 70s. One of the first parody movies I think I ever saw, a sketch comedy film, sort of like Amazon Women on the Moon. One just very, very, very funny movie. Particularly Fistful of Yen. Oh, the guy who starred in Fistful of Yen, by the way, he actually is the enforcer bruiser dude in Megaforce. For those of you who've seen Megaforce, Tom the Hungry Jerk says he ended up paying Queen some money. He sure did. While Jevin says, I'm sorry to hear about that, Cindy. Yes, as are we all. Lisa Field says, I have 10 grandchildren. I couldn't imagine your pain, Cindy. Do you? 10? I found one is more than enough. Skipping. Tom the Hungry Jerk points out Kentucky Fried Movie, early John Landis. Yes, it is. Thank you. Mike Sylvie says, wow, it's just the funniest movie ever made. It's certainly up there. It's very, very funny. Superplex points out before there was Kentucky Fried Movie, there was Tunnel Vision. There was also a movie I want to say I think it was called Montevideo, but that one, if I remember correctly, that one was a bit more risque, and Chevy Chase is in a couple of spots. But that one bordered. Some of it was actually considered adult entertainment, if I remember correctly, at least in the unedited version. Uh, Tom Hungry Jerk says, "I'm going to Boston sometime next year. It could be nice to see you. That would be absolutely awesome." Um, I don't know what restaurants in Boston are still open. I haven't been to Boston since before the world went to, but I'm sure there's some good ones. Personal favorite, there's always the Cheesecake Factory in the South Shore Plaza in Braintree. And I have an aunt and uncle who live in Weymouth. So we'll pencil in Cheesecake Factory. But again, there's plenty of others. But that'd be awesome. And any others of you who will be in the New England area in the upcoming or not too distant future. And if not, we can certainly revisit the matter. Mike Silva says the Groove Tube movie. Thank you, thank you. I knew I'd get there eventually. There was one called Monte de Video, but sometimes movies tend to blend together with me. Big Guys 45 says, anybody remember I Have the Skill by the Sherbs at all? 1980-81. Number 61 on the Billboard Hot Top 100 charts. I don't. I don't remember anybody remember I Have the Skill. So I guess I don't have the skills. Mystery Man and Monster says, remember Americathon? Funny movie and Approach Today. Approach Today doesn't touch it, but don't get me started. That was one of John Ritter's first attempts at a starring role. He made a few fun, light comedy matinee films. Hero at Large is probably my favorite, but Americathon was great. And if I remember correctly, wasn't that the movie where Meatloaf goes into gladiatorial combat with a car? The Hungry Jerk. Oh, Zuplik says, the Hungry Jerk, will you bring a Welk plate? You're speaking of one of the few Cape Coders that don't like seafood. So I do know a few good seafood restaurants that have a good lubbers menu. That's for landlubbers like us. They have really good Black Angus burgers and chicken dishes and whatnot. So if you crave seafood, I can certainly. But those are all on Cape Cod. Old Cape Cod, as the song goes. Mystery, never heard of it. Mike Sylvia says mystery, never heard of it. Yeah, John Ritter, matinee comedy. Basically, what happens is America, the national debt gets so big, America goes broke, and it causes universal economic collapse. People are living in cars, and the very young president, played by John Ritter, comes up with a plan to have a telethon to make America flush again. If it was only that simple. Skipping. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, I gave it to Pat as a joke gift. Pat hates Lawrence Welk. The Big Guy 45 says, Hungry Jerk, what a great username. It is. It is. Although he prefers Tom, at least for me. Maybe that's the way I say it. Superblick says, the Lennon sisters were too much sweetness. My roommate in college had a crush on the Lennon sisters, all of them. Let's see. Mystery Man and Monsters. Yes, on the Meatloaf reference. Yes, Meatloaf was in it. He actually did a few movies back in the day. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, Hungry Jerk is a 1974 Wacky Packs sticker that I collect. I've always wondered, instead of Hungry Jack Potatoes, Hungry Jerk, because that always sounded familiar. I'm going to go through my old Wacky Packs at some point. Although my favorite was still, instead of True cigarettes, it was Truant. And it's a kid hiding under a bridge, and the True icon is actually the metalworks of the bridge, and he's hiding under the bridge smoking a cigarette when he should be in school. And Hungry Jerk says Tom's okay. And Mike Sylvia said, what about America Prime movie? I don't recall that one. Oh, it's a 70s film parodying TV. Huh. Huh. I'm not familiar with that one. Liplik says, I thought Hungry Jerk was a reference to your job as a chef. Thanks, chef. You know, it's funny. I've worked in several restaurants over the years. You know, I'm a bartender by trade. I've worked in several restaurants, and I've worked in many restaurants where you're not supposed to call the chef, but I've worked in many where you can. And it's so funny because my wife can't stand Gordon Ramsay's. He actually scares her. But she'll ask me, she goes, "Is that what it's like in Hell's Kitchen?" And I go, "Yeah." Yes, cooks will scream at you like maniacs. The only difference is a lot of times servers will scream back, and but no one in the right mind would scream at Gordon Ramsay. he scares me, and I'm in the hosp biz. Um, Terrell Eugene Bellinger says, "Do you think that boy bands like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, girl groups like the Spice Girls, and singers like Britney Spears were responsible for rejuvenating the teen pop scene of the late '90s?" It certainly helped, and of course, the Disney Channel with their attempt to bring back the Mouseketeers, as you know, Britney and a lot of the others were Musketeers as well. So that certainly helped. Park Ranger Rick Marshall, referring to Grumpy. He never learns, does he? Holly Marshall, well, what do you expect? His brain is the size of a walnut. Park Ranger. Rick Marshall was a park ranger? Huh. But yes, Grumpy is the Tyrannosaur, and I believe that was when they hit him with the fly swatter, which is when they took the long wooden spike and shoved it into his mouth to make him go away. And it always worked. Um, Tom Hungry Jerk says, I've been called chef. Just Tom. I've been called, you mean I haven't been called chef? Or maybe you've been called chef, but you prefer Tom. I'm just going to call you Tom. That seems to be working fine for me. But everyone else, you can come to terms with him yourself. Duplex says, I always imagined a kitchen was like a scene in Goodfellas where they played the tune and then he kissed me. You don't get a lot of music in the back of the house. Usually there's 18 people all screaming at the same time. I was supposed to get fries with that. Where's my sub salad? Whose piccata is this? You have all these people screaming, and if you try to play music over that, nobody can understand each other. And then the owner comes back and says, "Will you people stop screaming? I can hear you guys at the front desk. People are freaking out because they think it's Damnation Alley in the kitchen." So sometimes they play music, but most kitchens no. But that's a great scene, though, in that movie. Although apparently nobody was having dinner that night because one of the weird things about that scene, it's a very, very, very busy nightclub. And while there's plenty of people working, it's a very, very leisurely pace. They'd be going like 18 ways from Sunday. Mike Sylvia says Disney Channel had the 70s Mickey Mouse Club. There were several incarnations. There was the 50s, the 70s, and the 90s. And I believe there was another one in this century, but nobody cared. Georgia here says, I liked The Who's Tommy the Movie. Amazing film. Apparently, I think they're going to be doing a Fathom event or something with that, by the way, because TMC has been talking about that movie at some length. Makes a great feature with The Song Remains the Same. Or Quadrophenia, although I prefer The Song Remains the Same. Mike Sylvia confers, good movie, Georgia. Lisa Field says, Tommy scared me as a kid. My cousin made me watch it. I can see that there's some intense adult themes in there. I can see how that would scare you. Zuplik says, well, that's one restaurant I'm never going to. Which one? I didn't name it. All restaurants doing peak service are manic panic. I have never worked at a restaurant where things weren't crazy during peak dinner service. You'll have 110 people who want dinner, 5 guys making the dinners, and at best 8 servers bringing the food out to them. 9 if you want to count the bartender, if the bartender's letting people dine at the bar, but that's usually not happening because everybody who's on a wait says, we'll just have a drink at the bar, so there's no room for people to have their dinner at the bar. And that is, as they say, that. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, song remains the same for me too. Yeah, great one. Zuplik says, I love Tommy and Margaret and a buddy. And Margaret was just such a beautiful woman. Even when she was trying not to be beautiful, she still remained beautiful. Anybody see Magic with Anthony Hopkins? I saw it as a kid, hid under the bed. It scared me so much. Saw it again. Still an intense movie, but again, Anne Margaret's in it. And even though she's trying to look more girl next door, she's still absolutely breathtaking. Hungry Jerk says Mother's Day in the restaurant business is the worst day ever. Yeah, because it's whole families. You know, Valentine's Day, it's couples. So you have a dozen two-tops, but they're two-tops. My granddaughter could win on a two-top. When your section's being taken up by 4 9-tops, and there's 15 10-tops waiting to seat, and they're doing this, they're looking at all the tables that are eating, saying, well, those people are having the dessert, why can't you hurry them along so that I can have my family come in? It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Mother's Day is actually one of the busiest days in the year in the hosp biz. Father's Day, not so much. Everybody has a cookout. Zuplik says, nope. No to what, he asked? Tom Long Drink says, Magic is great. It certainly is. I saw it 40 years later, and it still holds water. Daryl Johnson points out Tina Turner as the acid queen, and she was amazing. I have always loved Tina Turner. I will always love Tina Turner. Zuplik says, Elton John in those ridiculous boots. Yes, as the pinball wizard. Yes, how could one forget? Wasn't the guy who played Evil Uncle Ernie, wasn't he the guy from Phantom of the Paradise? There's a bell ringing in the back of my head. And Oliver Reed is the stepdad, isn't he? Or am I, again, correct me if I'm wrong. I could have sworn Oliver Reed is the stepdad. City D says Mother's Day is the greatest selling day for Hallmark cards. Again. Mr. Mini Miles says, Thrash, are you in the front of the restaurant or do you work in the kitchen? I'm a bartender by trade, but I also pick up shifts in the front of the house. And again, in my restaurant, the bar also sells food. So I'm always running to the back of the house to get dinners, even when I'm not on the floor. So, but technically I'm front of the house. I just go back long enough to become overheated and dehydrate. Zuplik says he lost to a blind man. But yeah, it was the pinball wizard. And Tommy was the best there had ever been. Georgia says he always seemed to wear outrageous clothing. Yeah, that was his trademark. Elton John, of course. Zuplik says Thrash is a bartender. There's a song in there somewhere. Thrash Bonda was a bartender, and his favorite drink was gin. And if you want to see him perform his craft, go to his restaurant and walk on in. 3, 4. Yeah, let's see. Tom Long Jerk says, I cringe when I see pictures of me in bell bottoms. Okay, funny story. Middle school, late 70s. I hit my last growth spurt. In fact, while we're on the subject, I was the tallest kid in my class in 7th grade. Never grew an inch. I am virtually the same height I am when I was 13. It was a pity, too, because I was a big, scary kid when I was 13. By the time I was 14, everyone else had shut up over me, and I was that short, fat kid. Moving forward, my mom had bought me all these new school clothes, often for birthday presents. My birthday is in August. In any event, she bought me all these great new school clothes, including some really, really awesome pants. By October, November, I had this last growth spurt and had what was called flood pants, where, because at the time, your pants were literally supposed to touch the bottom of your sneaker. Mine were up around my ankle. Now, flood pants were hopelessly outdated by this point. I didn't even remember them, which shows how outdated they were. But of course, every kid is, oh, hey, Bob, where's the flood? And I don't get it. What the frig you friggin' frigs talking about? Some of these were kids who, oh, I don't want to make this a class thing, but some of these were kids who, let's just say, they were wearing clothes which I had put in the Goodwill box. And they're criticizing me about my fashion sense. No justice. So, anyway, count yourself lucky with the bell bottoms. It's like John Henry, thank you. Zublik says in the 70s, bell bottoms were cool. Yeah, but flood pants were. Even by the kids who went to thrift stores. Zublik agreed. Jordia says they made a comeback. Bell bottoms, maybe, but not the flood pants. What I should have done was turn them all into cutoffs, but my mother wouldn't let me. While Jamin says high waters. That's probably another name for them. I believe it. Alicia Field says 70s fashion was horrible. LOL. It certainly was. It certainly would. Tom Lungendrick says flood's too funny. Yeah, and people just come to me. Hey, where's the flood? I go, why are you looking at my ankles, you creep? Yeah, I went there. Mike Sylvia says killer fish movie, piranha movie. That was done by John Sayles, who's actually one of my favorite directors. Kevin McCarthy has a small part in it. Great film. Some great stop motion animation. I want to say by Joe Dante. I'm not 100% on that, but I believe it was him. But some great brief stop motion animation. Zublik says we called them high waters. Another country heard from. Yeah, one Jamin says that we were called too. City D says MJ made flood pants popular again in the 80s with the moonwalk. Really? I don't recall that. I just remember everything he had sparkles on it. But I don't recall them being flood pants. But thank you. I feel better now. So I say I missed it by that much. I was in the late 70s, so I had missed both incarnations. Mystery Men and Monster says I came up with a couple of virgin mixed drinks called the Kalatiki and the Tobanga, both on pina coladas and monster movies. Sounds delicious. My drink of choice is the Purple Panda, which is it's made like a rocket pop. You put blue curacao on the bottom, raspberry vodka and Sprite or soda water if you don't want it too sweet in the middle, and then grenadine on the top. You stir it, and the concoction goes from a rocket pop into a purple concoction right before your eyes. People love that. It's very, very slick. Can also be done in a virgin format as well, using like blue Xerox on the bottom and just green on the top and just Sierra Mist in the middle. It's just sometimes it's tricky to find a non-alcoholic blue syrup because you need to have it be blue so it turns purple. Well, Jimin said that's what we called in school. Yes. Cindy said yes with his white socks. Yes, I had white tube socks that the very, very, very top that you would have like a yellow and green bands or black and red bands, some type of bands at the top, but you couldn't see those because those would have been at your knee, probably. Hungry Jerk says Piranha is a Roger Corman movie of the 70s. Did he direct it? I thought John Sayles directed it. Did Roger Corman produce it? He produced a lot of movies later on that he didn't, in fact, direct. He directed some great stuff, though. In fact, I was just talking about that in some alien stuff we were doing earlier today. Tracy Ross Myers reiterates that 70s fashion was so bad. It certainly was. Mike Sylvia said, Hungry, there was a ripoff of that movie with Karen Black. There's a bell ringing in my head. Not the Piranha movie, but I know a Karen Black movie I think you're talking about. Get back to me. Zuplik says Piranha 2 was better than Piranha. Okay. Mike Sylvia counters with Super Piranha 2 wasn't as good as the original movie. Let's see. I'm sorry, I keep looking up to the side. There's some twitch that's probably just missed on my glasses. Do your eyes have the mist of a smoke from a distant fire? Every time, pardon me, every time in my restaurant somebody orders a Sierra Mist, I say a mist of a distant fire. Let the screen door hit you. Let's see. Lisa Field says, anybody seen Wizards, the animated movie? Bot. Get them, boys and girls. Get them, everyone. So far, they just... they're being deleted. Good. Ha, 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 ha. Get them. Lisa, right before I did the show, I actually did an unboxing of some old vintage comic books. I'm going to be doing a retrospective, not just a review, a retrospective of Wizards the movie. And I'm researching it. And one of the big things I want to talk about, any of you may have remembered the Retro Nerd Girl. She's actually been a guest a couple nights. She wasn't here tonight, but if you haven't subscribed, go to Retro Nerd Girl and subscribe to her stuff. She provides some amazing film reviews. She did one on Wizards, and I didn't want to have mine pale in her comparison. So I remembered I had some old articles about the alleged rivalry between Vaughn Baudet and Ralph Bakshi, which I dug out today. And I'll be referring to them deeply in my Wizards retrospect. So I've seen it. My mom took me to see it actually when I was like 10 or 11 in the theaters when I was a kid. One of my favorite post-apocalyptic movies of all time. And you'll be hearing a lot more about it on this channel. And Tom, the Hungry Jerk, apparently is also something of an expert. I might actually contact you specifically to get some upcoming notes. And she says she can't wait. Danny Staten says, Watership Down. What about that one? Oh, my God. That was very, very sad. I've seen it several times, and it's excellent. It's just kind of hard to get through as an animal lover. Oh, and while we're at it, there's another one called Plague Dogs. Don't! I beg you, do not see Plague Dogs. It's up there with Graveyard of the Fireflies, which, again, don't see Graveyard of the Fireflies unless you have a box of Kleenex and a bottle of scotch with you. You won't make it. In any event. Mystery Man Monster says, gotta go. Great job, Thrash, as usual. Thanks to you as well. Actually, we're coming up on the 10 o'clock mark. So I'll invite some last-minute questions or comments or suggestions for the next one. I don't know if I'm able to do one next week. I'm certainly going to try. Osric says he saw Graveyard of the Fireflies. Tearjerker, huh? I'll certainly try. I might do, because of some scheduling issues, I might actually take a page from Dan. I might do a late night. Because bear in mind, late night to me is prime time for a lot of you guys. Because I'm on the East Coast. But in the event, I'll do another one next week if possible. And any suggestions, feel free to get them in now. And thank you, Tom. I will possibly be messaging you at some point. In fact, does Ian have your contact info? If he does, I'd like to shoot you my contact info through Ian, and we could try to get the ball rolling. I have having some issue with the email address I have associated with this channel. I'm working it out, but baby steps. Danny, I'm not doing Human Centipede. I'm sorry. Ew. I'm sorry, I can't. Zublik says, this has been fantastic, T-Pongs. No, you guys have been fantastic. The reason these are so much fun is because you guys bring a lot to the table. Sometimes your conversation is going on so rapidly, I can't keep up with it. Now, it's great that I can interject, and I have stories that support what you guys talk about, but it's you guys who make this channel. It's actually, you see how I make it as a bartender. People give me their topics, and I comment and interject and bring more to the table and elaborate. And that's why it works for me. And that's why you guys work for this chat. The Hungry Jerk says, it's been fun tonight. Thank you. Zublik says, the graveyard exposes the truth behind an atomic bombing. Yes, it does. In Japan in the last days of World War II. Very sad. Tom the Hungry Jerk. No, but Pat and Dave do. Oh, okay. Perhaps Dave. Dave Sundstrom has my again, like and subscribe to Dave. Dave has my contact information. I'll pass on to Dave that I would like you to give you my contact info so I could actually discuss the upcoming event of Wizards. And like I said, hopefully I'll have an email address associated with this one, and we won't have to go through these hoops. Oh, a lot of people saying have fun. Good night to everybody. Danny Staten says good times. I hope you don't mean about human centipede. Ew. Trey Thrust Meyer says thank you, Robert. No, Dan, I knew what you meant. Thank you. It is good times. Superplex says keep hope alive, everyone. You know what? You too, Superplex. It's been a rough couple of years, and it's not looking like it's getting any better anytime soon. I actually was joking at work, and I go, what a rough century. Is it almost over? Well, no. Well, I guess the century's not almost over, but the decade's almost over, isn't it? Oh. But you know what? Both the century and the decade are what we make of it. I think we're just going to have to try a little bit harder. We have lots of fun together. Perhaps we can spread the fun with other people and make this world just a little bit of a brighter place. I shall now get off the soapbox. And moving forward, Terrell Eugene Bellinger says, which 80s TV shows were canceled too soon? Do you wish would have one more season to wrap up the story? That's always a great topic. In fact, I believe we covered that at some point, but that's always a great topic. Or, like, say, with, I don't know, Hill Street Blues, I'd like to throw their canon last season out and replace it with a better last season. That'd be a great topic. What great shows went off the rails in the last season, and what would you do to have had a better last season? Mike Sylvia says it's been fun, guys. Still here? Yeah, we're still here as well. Tom Longdrick says, get my phone number. I'm computer dumb. Thank you. I will. Cindy D says we will get through it, Thrash. We will. By sheer iron will alone, we will get through it. We've seen dark days before. I wish we could say we weren't seeing any more, but we're going to. But we will get through it. We're not going to let's just say we're not going to let them win. I'll let you fill in who them are. I promised I wouldn't get political. Zublik says this helps. T-Pons, thank you. Well, Jemin says Alf. Yes, we talked about Alf on a show that Retro Series is going to be posting about family-friendly aliens, and we talked about how Alf really should have had another season. Daily Dan has given another link to one of his blogs for the 13 o'clock high show. Please join him for that. I will be there with bells on. Bell bottoms, that is, it is. Daryl Jones says, just take it one day at a time. Keep the faith. I will. Tom the Hungry Drink says, thank you, everyone. Till next time. Couldn't have said it better myself. Mike Silva says, same bat channel, same bat time. Thank you. And a lot of people saying good night. And on that note, I too will say good night. Folks, I have had a thoroughly fun time. You know this has gone on for more than 2 hours. It has. It's gone on. I actually started this at like 7:45. It's literally 10 o'clock now. And it's just... And I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. Some channels have like dozens of people join, and they have no comments in the comments section. I had 10 or 12, and I barely had a chance to keep up. And speaking of keeping up, look who's here. Golden Rage of TV. Darn Spur-A-The-Moment. Oh, that was a joke. I actually gave a heads up a couple days ago. Very, very sorry. You can always catch us and rewatch. Pat, I've been singing your praises all night. To everyone whose praises I haven't sung, your praises is great too, but I've told everyone to go join the Golden Rage of TV since I met most of them on your channel and Dave's channel. They already knew that. But, and Danny Staten has given you a link. Look at it quickly, because on that note, I'm going to say, friends, thank you very much for joining us. Those of you who couldn't make it tonight, please catch us and rewatch. Golden Range, love you too, man. Please catch us and rewatch. I know we all have lives and we can't always do live streams and stuff, but I love each and every one of you. You guys have been great. Looking forward to seeing you all again very, 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 very soon. Peace.